Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So today we are discussing about data protection and privacy management. We are discussing about the industry. We're going to discuss about the jobs which are available in the industry, the evolution of the act itself, and how things are looking at things we'll look at in the next 10-15 years to come. I have with me 𝗬𝗁 𝗠, if I've pronounced it correctly wrong. I'm sorry if I've
very good.
It's tough. Thank you so much. So 𝗬𝗁 is the marketing director of Swiss School of Management. 𝗬𝗁 has an experience of more than 15-20 years of working in Europe, traveling all across Europe. He brings his perspective into data protection from Europe, basically. So I'm going to open up a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about the evolution itself. So data protection priorly was known as privacy laws, and it started gaining importance with the advent of computers in 1970s. 1973 and 74, the Council of Europe, which is now known as European Commission, basically, passed two very important resolutions. And later in 21st January, they started talking about this as a Data Protection Act. This was 1981. From there onwards till 1995, it traveled. And from 1995 till 2016, finally, it was called as GDPR. The act, there was a huge change in the act itself, in the sense that by the time it turned GDPR, the entire handling of data came under the ambit, which means that right from the initiation of the data within the organization to traveling and the discarding of data. So when GDPR came into force, we could easily see that it's not only lawyers or data protection people who were affected or who had to know it, salespeople, people who were into MIS, admin, everybody through the data passed on had to understand what is GDPR all about. And if they were not complying with it, there are huge amount of fines which were put into these companies. The company had to go through paying those fines, basically. So this is a very, very, in short, the inception of the act, how it came to being, how it developed in almost 30 years, 35 years, or rather 45 years of existence. And now, 𝗬𝗁, I'm going to talk a little bit about, since you've worked, traveled in Europe, how much it has evolved in the last 10-15 years, data protection as an act and as a subject, how much it has evolved. So if you can start with that.
Yeah, that's fine. So what I noticed was that previously, about 10 years or so ago, it was kind of expensive to collect a lot of data, and collecting all those data, and then you needed to store them, and when you stored it, then you will be able to analyze the data. But then a lot of firms like Amazon and Facebook and Google came up, and they started to offer a lot of storage services like Amazon Web Services, etc. And then all of a sudden, collecting data became very cheap to do. So when marketers, for example, first started with selecting which data they need before they start to collect, nowadays they just collect everything, store everything, and then start looking for something that they can use. So that is in general what I see over the past years. And all those large companies like Microsoft or Amazon or Facebook or Google, they really know a lot about many people, and they sell it on almost you can just buy it if you want, and you can use it as a company. And well, that's also something that everyone can have access to all that data. And that's the reason I think that it's good that now in Europe, we pay more attention to who owns the data, where is it stored, who can access it, how can you use it. And it seems that the more we go into the 2020s, we see a lot more attention for cyber attacks, for cyber problems within companies, and that even small and medium-sized businesses become victims of cyber crimes. And from my personal life, I know a lot of people that have been conned personally via internet things. I don't know exactly how they work, but they have been conned. And it seems that all that data and all your privacy, it needs to be managed properly, and it needs to be secured better than it has been in the past. So that's what I see in the last 10 years. So first it was like the wild, wild west. You can collect everything there is, but it was expensive. So you were very selective. Then it became very cheap to collect data, and the technological developments and innovations, they made it possible to collect just everything and store it, because storage was almost for free. And now we start to see that privacy is something, that holds value, and that it's important, and we should be more careful with what we do with it. So that's what I see over the past years. Yeah.
So, my experience has been that prior to this, I have worked with a European company, and I still remember in 2017 mid, I was told by the HR to, we had online tests in GDPR, and we had to pass those tests every 4 months, and we had to get 70%, more than 70%, and revert back with the certificate to the HR, failing which within the next 2 years, if we have out of those 6 tests, if we get less than 70% in 4 of them, we have a direct effect on our promotions actually. So so I could see that in 2017 there was a lot of stress put on by the companies to sensitize everyone. I was in sales, I was in business development, market development, to sensitize every people, to make them understand how to handle data, how to use it, and then how to either store it or discard it. So there were complete beautiful ways of doing that, and it came down to people as simple as salespeople. I mean 7 years back, I had seen how we buy data and then use data basically and discard it off, and then things changed completely after GDPR came in. So do you know about any company? Can you put any company's experience where you see that their employees are sensitized in handling data to this level?
Yeah.
Do you have any experience on that?
What I see in practice is in the past few years, I've seen a lot of companies from the inside. And what I see and notice is that the awareness of data and privacy became higher. And it was sometimes it was discussed like a joke, that we need to be more careful with it. But then when the news and the developments of the fines, and they were really issued, those fines, and the local authorities really grew, they got teeth. Then I saw a shift that now it's a very serious thing. And for example, in the Netherlands, where I'm based, we have a lot of office spaces that are so-called flex office spaces. So no one has a fixed spot in the office where he sits. He just comes in, finds a place, and just sit there and goes to work. Well, if you have such a model, then it's very important that when you arrive at your desk, that there are no data lying around, just a piece of paper with some credentials written down. That's already a breach of data management. So I see that it is very important, and it became important, and it looks like we are giving it the right attention now. So that's what I'm seeing.
Okay. So, so if I delve a little bit deeper into the industry as such, I see data protection industry right now in 2020-21 to be roughly around 2.4 billion USD, right? It's projected to grow at around 18% CAGR, compounded annual growth, and it is going to match up to around 12.4 billion USD in 2027. Very impressive, very impressive. 18% sustained growth over the next 7 years. Now, I see Germany's growth to be enviable, almost at 19% over the next 7 years. I see Japan growing. The predictions are Japan is growing very well. US, of course, is growing well. China is going to grow well. These are real big tigers. They're going to grow very well. Now, coming back to you, since you have some bit of experience into the industry per se and the employment per se, you've seen people being employed in this industry. Can you take us through a little bit of understanding what kind of elements? See, now data protection is not about lawyers or tech guys. Data protection has been opened up, so anything, anybody, when the data travels through anyone, whether it is a sales or anyone, he must know GDPR. He must understand the provisions of this act so that he doesn't do anything which incurs, fine on them, basically. So looking at that, what are the kind of jobs which are available? The starting point, how much time does it take for them to reach to a middle level or to a top level? If you can throw some light on the average salary bands and things like that, and maybe the designations, because India is very designation freaky. They want to know what designation is all about. So some bit of light there.
Yeah. So what I see when looking at GDPR is that exactly what you just told, is that the law itself is quite complex to comprehend. So there's a lot of room for consulting. And we see that a lot of information is shared on the GDPR, on how does it work in general. So that's a lot of room for communication specialists, for marketers, for people that are good with words. I also see that the consulting business on GDPR and the effects on how does the GDPR work in my specific situation. So our company has so many employees, and he hires a legal consultancy agency and asks, how do I need to change to be GDPR compliant? And here also the ISO, what is it, 27001, something like that. It's a certificate, standardization. Comes in, and so there's a lot of room for consulting there. There's also training and implementing. So, for example, a company bought, let's say, an advice from a consulting firm, and there's a document somewhere lying around in the office. We are GDPR compliant, but then the people on the floor need to be aware, they need to be trained. The GDPR must be implemented in practice. So there's room for people that know how to train employees, how to work with other people, for let's say trainers or coaches or teachers, all kinds of people that know the basics of the GDPR and know how to train and implement the way of working within a company or within a culture of for a group of companies. What I'm not seeing, but it might be due to my lack of vision in there, is litigation at this point. I think that from my perspective, it's kept quiet, that there is a data breach, because you can imagine that some companies want to keep silent about it, some about reputation or perhaps some shame. But what I do know is that there are a lot of fines being issued, and those amounts are not funny.
Yes.
And those amounts must be paid by someone. So I know that also people from finance must know something about how to process this fines, etc. So those are some jobs that I see going around at this point. And I think it's still in development. That if you ask me this question in 5 years from now, I will give you a complete different answer. More jobs will come.
Yeah.
I don't know at this point what those jobs will entail, but I know they will come. About the salaries, so if you look at the Eurozone specifically, due to the fact that the GDPR is also active for companies that are not based in the EU, but are operational in the EU. So for example, Microsoft is not really a Dutch company or a German company, but they still need to listen to the GDPR. So it's a kind of a wide employment possibilities. It's not necessarily the case that if you are working at a company in the Netherlands, you must be a Dutchman yourself. So that's why when you're looking at salaries, they are kind of standardized. If you look at the experience level, so if you are a junior, you can expect somewhere around 25 to 35,000 euros per year. If you're doing, let's say, some legal consulting, on some training, on some implementing. If you're a mid-level professional, let's say,
I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to stop you right there and ask you one thing. That you just said that at the elementary level, we are talking about 25 to 35 grands euros. Now, if I compare that with a normal MBA person, maybe marketing and sales or something like that, how does the comparison work? Is the data protection guy getting a little bit more than the MBA guy, or are they at par with each other? How does the comparison work there?
So yeah, this is because it's a new field, GDPR consulting, etc. It's hard to benchmark it, but I can imagine that if someone comes in with an MBA with a specialization on, let's say, in this case, privacy or something like that, he already has some work experience. Because he did his bachelor's or his LLM or his LLB somewhere else. He did some internships perhaps. Then he comes in and he's operational from the get-go. Then I would say that he will earn more and that he will be placed somewhere between the junior level and the mid-level executive level. So somewhere around, if I were to hire him and he was operational from the get-go, then I would say it's somewhere between 35 and 45k euros per year what I would be offering. Yeah.
So fine. I mean, I now understand it. So you can continue with the other part, the mid-level, the higher level, what kind of experience they look at and all this.
Yeah. So when you're looking at the mid-level employees, I think it would be safe to say somewhere around 50k per year in euros. And then they have the possibility to grow into a senior level consultant, and that's around 70,000 euros. And I think that the level above that one is becoming a partner in the firm where they are consulting. And in some firms it's possible, in some it's not. It depends on the company that you're working in. So that's what I see on a general level.
But this industry is evolving in the sense that this entire stream is evolving. And I mean, and this is something which I guess in the last 5 years is going to jump manyfold when it comes to salary, when it comes to a number of people who are coming into this, in fact. So I see a lot of probably people with much more wider experience, in the sense that people who may come with some management experience or a management education into data management, data privacy kind of places, and then move in and go up basically. Now I also wanted to understand, you are a part of a business school which is based out of Switzerland. It has its own name, it has been doing well. Now typically in an institution like this, how do you handle data? Is there any safeguards in place? Because with us in an institution, even at LawSikho, data is extremely important. Data is everything. For you also, data is everything. Everything is. I mean, we are able to do business when we are able to use data correctly. And and judiciously, right? So how do you handle data within SSM?
Yeah. So let's be completely honest here that this is a process still in development. We are still learning every day how we work. But if you compare our way of working today with what we had 3 years ago, it's an enormous change. So for example, we now have centralized all our customer relationship data, so all the student administration files, everything, we have centralized it in one system, and we are not storing it locally, we are storing it in a cloud. So we bought a secure cloud, and now it's easier for us to work with permissions, rights for each employee, who sees what, when, and under which condition. So if I want to access some data that is not really within my employment profile, I will need to ask permission to someone who is my direct superior. And if I want to access the data that I do have access to, I still need to use my phone to get a one-time password, something like that. It's a two-way verification to get access, and it will check if I'm in a location that fits my profile. So for example, as I told you, I'm based in the Netherlands. If I now at this point will log in with an IP address from let's say India, then a red flag will go off. Then my direct superior will know that I am in a different place, and that's suspicious. So that's in principle how we can access our data digitally. But also we work with a lot of partners globally. We have resellers, we have agents, we have joint ventures, and they also bring in data on their markets, on their clients. And that is still something we try to find the ideal way of transporting the data, collecting it, and store it or discard it, because not everything is valuable every time or forever. So this is still a process, because if you look within our company, I think it is very well structured. A data breach will not happen easily. And I'm not saying that we are watertight. It is impossible to breach us. I'm not saying that. I think that when someone wants to hack our system, they can, of course. But we have made it so difficult that perhaps they will go on and visit the next educational institute because they are easier. And this is something I learned from our legal consultant on the GDPR, is that making it perfectly safe is not really possible, but making it sure that everyone within your company is aware of what is at stake, not only your reputation, not only your money or your revenue or whatever. No, you're talking about basic personal information about individuals. You have to be careful with that. And if you are a bit more careful than your neighbor, they will probably skip your house and they will try to break in with the other one. And you have to draw a line somewhere. And if they try not to break in with your house, it's fine. Then you're golden.
Okay, so I'm going to bring another aspect to it. The world has changed in the last 1.5 years since COVID came, and I think the world has completely turned upside down. The way we are doing business, the way education is being delivered, how we have gone almost online from being campus to blended, right? So with this advent, I think there is a huge change also in the industry, especially in the legal industry. We see a lot of remote work coming in. I have personally, worked remotely for a very long time, but this is different. This is where a person sitting in India with a certain set of skills will be able to get some job, which is a freelancing job, from Europe or US and deliver it through the internet and earn.
Yeah.
Right. So there is this is something which is coming up in a big way. More because there is a disparity as far as your salaries are concerned, your wages are concerned. So we may get lesser paid, but then we will be able to deliver that. Of course, there are some countries where there is a problem of outsourcing work, but there are countries who adapt to this. Do you see a great future in the data protection area as far as remote working is concerned, in the sense that, do you see that we will be able to, or sitting in India, students will be able to do consultative work in the data protection area through remote working?
In one word, yes, I do. And I will tell you why. Let's assume that educational institutes will develop their coursework and their curriculum as fast as they've been doing in the past decades. Then GDPR came into action in 2016. It will take another, let's say, 5, 6, maybe 10 years before we have a large enough army of legal consultants in the European Union, before we have the army that we need to make every company, and we have a lot of companies here in the EU, before we have them ready on a GDPR level, that they are no longer in danger zone, let's say. So if you guys in India make it possible for us, let's say business owners in the EU, to get good advice, to help us up to speed, get up to speed, or to match the GDPR level of security that is demanded within that time, I think that is golden. Because if you look at the top legal of big companies, I think they will manage. But if you go one slightly level below in the pyramid, then you have the small, medium-sized enterprises, and there you have tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of freelancers, of small business owners, of medium-sized companies. They all need advice that they can trust and they can rely on how to work with the GDPR. They all need it. And if there is a way that distance work helps bridge that gap, that would be perfect. It would be ideal. Yeah.
So I guess when you talk about distance work, when you talk about remote work, I think people can curate the process, write down the process, and a whole other gamut of consultative work can be done by remote work, basically. So probably can be trained also. Training can be one part of it. Somebody who can go ahead and train people in data protection, especially people who are not lawyers can be trained. So those kind of, so I see a lot of possibility as far as remote working is concerned in this area, basically. And actually remote working is something which I see a gamut of possibilities everywhere, because the way I don't see the world opening up like the way it used to be 1.5 years back in the next at least 1-2 years. I think everybody is planning for a situation which is exigent in nature, and revenues are going down, revenues are taking hit, and they're planning for something which is more futuristic. So I think doing work sitting wherever you are is probably going to stay for a very long time to come. And I'm absolutely sure that I think as an industry, data protection is going to grow. It is already growing. And if the figures say that there's a CAGR of 18% in the last 7 years, that is humongous itself. Because there are very few industries who will maintain that CAGR in the next 7 years. Probably 7%, 8% CAGR is very decent. Here it is 18% absolutely over the next 7 years consistently. So I see a lot of things there. We have a boot camp. LawSikho has a boot camp on 29th, 30th, and 31st, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Our boot camps are very special. It is attended by 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 students at one time. and extremely informative. Ramanuj and Abhyuday, who are our co-founders, are going to steer that. I'm going to call you for the bootcamp because you'll get a understanding about what is this field all about in this part of the world about data protection as an industry. Now, before we go, I'm going to ask a little bit more about, if you can give some idea about, see, typically in Europe, there are some countries which are quite forward-looking. Some are slightly not that forward-looking. So can you pick a few countries where you feel that in data protection, in the next 5 years, there are going to be ample opportunities, either through remote working or through, being there and working. So few countries you feel who are doing some stellar work in this area.
Yeah. So when looking from my perspective, I try to look where the European Commission has a lot of money invested in startups and scale companies. Those companies, they will be cutting edge. They will be technology driven, maybe some healthcare driven, and within the EU they try to make those startup hubs, as they call it. So, for example, we have one large one in the Netherlands. It's a fund that gets, I don't know how many million euros each year, but they get a lot of money from the EU on to invest in startups. And the same goes in Germany. And I'm not sure if there are more countries that are as innovative as those two, so the Netherlands and Germany. But I would focus there, and I invite everyone who is more of an expert on the other countries in the EU to come to us and enlighten us on where more opportunities are lying, because I'm sure every other country in the European Union has its own advantages. So, for example, in Switzerland, it's very beautiful. You have the mountains, you have the very strict and nice people. But in Spain, you'll have the nice weather. And in Italy, you have the nice wine. So it all depends what has your preferences. Yeah.
Netherlands is even beautiful. If you go up in the upcountry areas, Netherlands is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
So, okay. So now the other part is that since GDPR came into effect, data protection is now prevalent in almost every company. In fact, every company. It's a part of it. You will have to keep data privacy officers, depending on the amount of data you manage. You will have to keep seniority or senior people in that rank, right? So that's one thing which is evolving. And we have discussed this before, but I want to talk to you again on this. How much do you think, for example, if somebody has a small data protection department right now comprising of 3 people, 5 people,
yeah,
how much do you think they'll grow in the next 5 years? Do they grow up to 50 people, 25 people? Is it directly depending on how much of data they are handling? Because data you have to handle. If you don't handle data, your business doesn't go up anyway, right? So, yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I think they will grow exponentially. So it's hard to say where it stops, but especially on the small business and medium-sized segment of companies, I think if they are now seeking this information outside, so at consulting agencies, I think in the next maybe 2 or 3 years, these issues will become so large that they will insource it. And where there are now no employees responsible for data protection, I think they will start with 1, and then the year after 2, and then the year after 4, and so I think we have seen very little at this point already, and the growth is already at 18% per year. I think there's a very large blue ocean yet to conquer, as the awareness of the impact of GDPR becomes larger and larger over time. Because I still think that many entrepreneurs or business owners still don't take it serious enough. And if they are made aware of the impact, they will start scratching their head and think, all right, maybe I should invest in this. So I still think that we have a lot of sleeping businesses.
Yeah, I also feel sincerely that, apart from being in a company managing the data process or being a data privacy officer, I think the training business will be a big one.
Yep.
Because you got to be updated. You can have a train the trainer kind of a thing where you understand the act very well, and you train people within the organization who go on and train more people. For example, you're a sales leader, you're trained on GDPR, you go on to train your own sales team into GDPR. So I guess the training business is going to throw open some exciting opportunity in the next 4-5 years as far as data protection is concerned, right?
Yeah.
And I think we have kind of completed almost all parts we wanted to talk about. Do you have anything else to share? One question which comes to my head always is that from where do you get the professionals to come to work? Do you have very good courses back in Europe as far as data protection is concerned? Are there diploma courses, certificate courses? I'm sure the training business has kind of ramped up itself to fight this, right? So what about that?
So in traditional universities and in universities, they have, let's say, privacy laws as a course. And so where do we get our professionals? I think it's we look at the graduates from the LLM, and we see who graduated on privacy law, and then we try to recruit them. And we pay, in sometimes we pay very hard and high recruitment fees to get those people in, because they can work everywhere. And then when they are in the company, they still need to be trained, educated, and helped with developing their theoretical skills into practice. So I think that at this point, from my view, is that we find it quite hard to find experienced people. So it's still in the early stages. So if you have a solution to that, we are very open to it.
Yeah, I'm sure, to get trained people into this, LLM is one area, surely, but I'm sure there are, the training business, as I said, it's going to grow exponentially, because you got to train people. And I've always seen when a new topic comes into play, you got the training business to stand up, get some certificates in place, and then they train more and more people within the organization, who in turn go and train more and more people. And then by the time the training is over, and then there is online processes there, online trainings there. So you have to go on, log in, pass those tests and everything. So I think a very exciting next 5 years, 7 years for this profession. A very, very exciting time coming up. A good number of vacancies, exciting number of vacancies coming up. And I think it's going to not going to only be with lawyers. It's going to expand and go to people who are beyond that, maybe MBA graduates, maybe people who are in the training industry, and several other. I think everybody can get into this and understand the process, be a consultant. So very exciting times, I guess, in the next 5-7 years coming up. And so I'm going to end up by again repeating that we have a boot camp coming up, 29th, 30th, 31st. I'm going to send you an invite on that. We're going to discuss data protection opportunities from lawyers. So Ramanu, J.J. both are lawyers, and our boot camps are very exceptional. They're attended by thousands of students, thousands of people who want to learn more about the industry, opportunities, and everything. So I'll send you an invite. I'm going to see you there. And thank you so much for being here. We are not taking questions today, Sanchita. If there is any question, if they can send it to your mail ID, you can direct it to me or Yoram, and then we can answer it back. I hope that works fine with those who are sending us, those who are sending us queries. So Yoram, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sparing time. So we'll catch up soon. Around 29th, we're going to catch up, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Sanchita, thank you so much.